Hello, this is Brooke Lyle here, and I want to talk about Matt Ryan right now and the Falcons. And we're at the eve of the NFL season, believe it or not. And not only that, we have about 3.5 weeks left to go in the baseball season. And then, in 4 weeks from now, the MLB playoffs are going to start. So it's going to be an interesting fall season between having the Falcons here locally and the NFL, not to mention the Dogs and playoff baseball at the same time. And that's going to be an interesting challenge. So trying to figure out this challenge of trying to add in some stuff. So we'll see what I get done. Do not want to make any announcements of, I'm going to do these videos this fall or not. But I just want to try to make whatever videos I can and come to mind. So right now, I want to talk about Matt Ryan's career in Atlanta. So this is year 14 for Matt Ryan, believe it or not. He is 36 years old. He came into this league in 2008. And the Falcons made it to the playoffs 4 times in his first 5 seasons, 3 consecutive misses. And then they made it twice in a row, and then since then they've missed 3 years in a row. So after 4 times in 5 years, the Falcons have missed the playoffs 6 out of the last 8 years, 3 in a row, 2 times in the playoffs, including that Super Bowl year, and then obviously losing to the Eagles. And then you had the last 3 years where the team record 7-9, 7-9. So doing the math, 18-30 football over the last 3 seasons. And granted, Matt Ryan in his career, 13 years, he's played in 205 games. 205 out of the possible 208. Missed 2 games his rookie year. In 2009, I think missed 1 game in 2019. Other than that, he has been completely healthy. Has had very few injury issues that have caused him to miss games. Now, I'm sure he's played through some stuff, but not to the extent where he's had to miss games. It could be luck that no one fell him funny, that no one hit plow drive his shoulder out for the year, or this injury, that injury, or had any concussions that we're aware of. Who knows what he played through, especially early in his career in a different era of football. Now it's a different era, but for Ryan, he has continued to put up big numbers in pretty much every year. I mean, if you look at the last, 10 consecutive seasons, he's thrown for over 4,000 yards after not doing any of his first 3 again. A little bit of a different era. When he first came in the league, they handed the ball off to Michael Turner a lot. And that was kind of their go-to running back that he had basically his first 5 years in the league. It was Michael Turner. Since then, I think the combination of Steven Jackson didn't work out so well. They had Devontae Freeman. He had his good moments, especially during the Super Bowl years. And then he kind of declined. Freeman-Coleman combination. And then really that 1-year experiment with Todd Gurley did not work out. Now it's Mike Davis. He's a primary back. So obviously he's not had as much running back help as he would have liked. Certainly, especially in recent years, defense, I mean, I'd have to look through every single year. Some years it's been good. I'd say for the most part, defense has been an issue, especially the last couple of years. Really, last year was a big issue. So for Matt Ryan, coming in the league, 11-5 his rookie year, making it to the playoffs, throwing for 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. One thing about Matt Ryan that's very noticeable is early on in his career, his sack totals were actually pretty low for the most part. Kind of right around less than 2 a game, kind of in the 20s. And then 2013 went to 44. Then kind of hovered around 30 for a while. Actually good in 2017, back to 24, lowest level since 2011. Actually, and then every other year since then, it's been in the 40s, including 48 in 2019. So again, since Matt Ryan is not like Russell Wilson or other quarterbacks just hold on the ball. No, Matt Ryan is a pocket passer. And granted, I'm no quarterback expert by any means, but what these numbers tell me is that the line is getting worse if you're letting Matt Ryan get sacked more. How come in some years he gets sacked 17 times, less than 20? Especially early in his career, and then later on, He gets sacked 40-something times, 410 times in his career so far. So the sack percentage, I mean, look at it, right around 4%. So about once every 25 plays, kind of early on in his career. And then it kind of shoots up to 6.5%, 7%. In some ways, it's twice as higher than it was. Now, obviously, he's had 30 fourth quarter comebacks in his career, so that's 30 plus wins that the Falcons have had due to Matt Ryan's being clutch, including leading the league in 2015. Also 2010, that was a really good year when they're 13-3. So again, the team records. Ryan had a winning record in each of his first 5 years. Missed those 2 games in 2009. In fact, if he didn't miss those games, I think it would have been a very different story for this franchise. His interception rates have not been too bad. Usually right around 2%. Never out of control. Some years obviously higher than others. But again, you have those years right there. Not blaming Ryan at all. So he's had 5 different seasons with a losing record, including the last 3 years. Again, if you want to talk about the Falcons losing being on Matt Ryan, it's not on Matt Ryan. You look at that year in 2018, threw for almost 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions. And then you look at the 42 sacks, linemen, defense. 2019, again, leads the league in completion back-to-back years, and almost attempts has thrown over 600 passes in each of the last 3 years. We're in that MVP caliber year. Actually, look at this number, 9.3 yards per attempt, and almost 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns. We're look at, again, this year's throwing just 530 something passes. Again, 16, 17 passing attempts were down. Again, having a really good offense. Rookie year threw just 434 passes. Obviously, the pass to run percentage very different. Obviously, you had Michael Turner, that workhorse running back then. So again, very different back in those days compared to now. But just looking at it, having to throw less passes. In fact, the strain on him was actually higher. The worse they were, the more passes that he had to throw. Granted, the passing numbers were lower each year, so that's a correlation in terms of his passing numbers and things like that. So looking at the numbers, has been over 4,000 yards each of the last 10 years. Has thrown 347 touchdowns in his career. So again, almost 200 more touchdowns than interceptions. So if you want to look at him on the all-time list, is quite high in the all-time list. Is under contract for 3 more years. Now, whether he will be back for any of these 3 years, I don't know. If we'll be there for all 3 years, I really am not sure at all what that's going to look like. But if you want to look at where he ranks all-time in passing attempts, he is 9th career. And granted, where Matt Ryan is just ahead of John Elway already. So he's thrown more passes than John Elway already, and is behind Ben Roethlisberger, who may pass, behind Eli Manning. If you want to look at Matt Ryan, has attempted over 7,000 passes. Let's say he throws for, give or take, about 600. So again, 1,800 more passing attempts. That puts him, so again, could pass Roethlisberger, Eli Manning. In terms of attempts, Phillip Rivers, Dan Marino. Could pass the great Dan Marino, yes. Next year even. Peyton Manning, for that matter. And we'll see where he ranks all time. Obviously, Brady's going to break pretty much every record, but over the last year has passed John Elway, Warren Moon. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is on that list as well, but more passing attempts than Fran Tarkenton. And granted, we get it; it's a different era of football than it was, say, I don't know, 20 plus than it was even when Ryan came into the league. Certainly than it was in the 90s. Just very different brand of football now than it was then. If you want to look at passing yards, obviously is ranked quite high up on the all-time list. Again, over 50,000 yards. It wasn't that long ago where that was considered a rare accomplishment. Now is 9th on the all-time list. Matt Ryan has just passed 9th, 55,000, so getting close to 56. So could get into the 60,000 threshold next year for sure, and possibly beyond. So that means could very well pass Dan Marino, a record that Marino held for years, since been broken by 5 different other quarterbacks. Not to bore you with stats and numbers here, but Matt Ryan just passed John Elway, Fran Tarkenton. Obviously, a fair amount of quarterbacks from the older days, long has since passed Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, players like that. Again, a different era now compared to what we had in years past. But Ryan, for an example, if he can throw for 4,000 yards this year, again, over the next 3 years of his contract, that would put him way past Phillip Rivers, and that would put him, when it's all said and done, you could very well get to the 70,000 threshold, be very high up there on some of the all-time category lists for sure. But again, health has certainly been a key factor for him as well. In fact, passes completed again is actually 3rd all-time career. Again, not surprising. Modern era of football, this really isn't that surprising. Career passing attempts per game, 6th all-time. Again, not surprising. 16th all-time in time sacked. I wonder who holds that record. Don't want to hold that record by any stretch of the imagination. Passing touchdowns, again, 4th all-time. Among active players, 10th all-time, just past John Elway. Passed him a long time ago, actually. Had Fran Tarkenton probably passed him sometime in 2019. But more passing touchdowns than John Elway. There used to be a time and place where John Elway was 3rd all-time. In fact, go after the 2006 season just to see what it is, just to kind of mess around right now. So again, after the 2006, Brett Favre was 2nd all-time. John Elway was 4th all-time. Again, very different. Like again, Tarkenton was once 3rd. Now he's 11th. Elway 4th. Now 12th. Unitas won 6th. Now 15th, and so on and so forth. And just guys are kind of losing their spots constantly. So again, everyone is getting passed. So now you go through 2021. So obviously Brady number 1. He's going to keep going. I don't know when Brady's going to stop. But again, Matt Ryan has passed so many Hall of Famers. Joe Montana, different era. For crying out loud, Johnny Unitas. All these guys, different era. Guys didn't used to automatically throw 300-plus touchdowns. So Ryan this year could very well pass Eli Manning. Ben Roethlisberger still going, approaching 400. Aaron Rodgers this year probably will get somewhere around 450s at 412 right now. So Aaron Rodgers will pass Dan Marino. So Dan Marino is once 1st all-time. Will more likely than not move to 7th, if not 8th place on the all-time touchdown list. For sure. Just ahead of him is Phillip Rivers, believe it or not. So they will slide over. So the question is, Roethlisberger will get to 500? No. Will Rodgers? I don't know. It's going to be close as he gets closer to 40. It's going to be interesting whether Rodgers decides to play elsewhere, and does he play as long as Brady does or not. Breeze stuck at 571. Again, he broke the record. Since then, him and Brady kind of traded off. Brady's going to probably get to 600, and who knows how much further Brady's going to go. I mean, I definitely think it's to 600. So for Ryan, again, 3 more years in Atlanta. Whether he stays all 3 years or not, I don't know. How long he plays, I don't know. We can see quarterbacks playing a long time. Brady, 44. Breeze played till 42. Manning just missed 40. Favre played till 41. He was banged up. Phillip Rivers just missed 40, I believe. Rodgers could play till 40. Ben Roethlisberger, also on the list. He's going to play close to 40. He's 39. Manning retired at 38, played close to 40 as well. Elway played close to 40. I know Palmer missed 40. I know Warren Moon played past 40. He was very old when he came in the NFL. By the way, Matthew Stafford, 282 touchdown passes. He's going to climb up the list pretty well. Again, Russell Wilson going to pass Joe Montana possibly from the first couple games of the season. Believe it or not. Wow. So again, just shows the era of passing, how passer friendly it is now compared to what it used to be back in the old days. I mean, for crying out loud, Andy Dalton, just scrolling through the list now, just kind of playing around, has more passing touchdowns than Terry Bradshaw. Again, what football was like then is very different to what it's like now. So anyways, Matt Ryan, if he decides to play and just kind of marveling at these different players in terms of where they rank on certain lists. So, if Matt Ryan plays 3 more years, let's say averages 30 touchdowns a year, he would get to 430, so he would pass Rivers. Now, will he get to Favre? I don't know. I don't think so. Will he get to 500? I don't know. But the point is, Matt Ryan ranks very high on so many different categories throughout for quarterbacks. And granted, I'm not saying Matt Ryan's an all-time great. Yes, he's shattered every Falcons passing record imaginable in the books, and Matt Ryan's been the quarterback here in Atlanta for a very long time, going back to 2008. So this is his 3rd decade now here in Atlanta. Just signed that $150 million extension in May 2018, and rightfully so. And again, the Falcons organization, now talking about Matt Ryan, they, not once but twice, look at what happened after 2012. Post-2012, by the way, Falcons had missed the playoffs 3 straight years. Out went Mike Smith. So he managed to somehow fall from that. I mean, how do you go from 13-3 and 13-3 2 times in 3 years, and then going 4-12? How does that happen? And then how do you go from the Super Bowl, almost winning a Super Bowl again? This team failed. You know what? That's a whole nother story. 10-6 good football for 2 years. You build something, and then how do you then go to mediocre and then to bad? So that's the question with the Falcons. So now let's change exhibits here. Let's talk about Falcons. And we're going to go to Franchise Encyclopedia, and we're going to look at the history of their coaches. So they've had a fair amount of coaches. So if you talk about the history of Falcons coaches, and they've had 18 coaches in franchise history. Granted, some of them were dismissed, only coached maybe a year or two. Most of them were not very successful, I would say, for a variety of reasons. They've had a number of different coaches. I mean, over the last 25 years, I'd say some of the most successful coaches they have had were Dan Reeves in 1997, had a long coaching career, coached the team for 7+ years, had some playoff success there. Early days of Michael Vick, could have been unfairly fired after Michael Vick got hurt. Who knows? For sure. But they had Jim Mora. He was looking at recent Falcons coaches' first-year success. Jim Mora took over in 2004. His first year, they went to the conference championship game, lost to the Eagles. That was in the height of the Vick era, right? So you're talking about, so that looked like a special era in Falcons history. Again, Dan Reeves, year 2, went to the Super Bowl, took over in 1997. But again, in terms of playoff games coached, who has the most, tied for first all time, Mike Smith and Dan Quinn. Obviously, Mike Smith's playoff appearances are spread more out. 4 playoff appearances. Dan Quinn, 2 playoff appearances. Dan Quinn ended up coaching 85 out of the possible 96 games, did not finish his tenure in Atlanta, and despite the struggles that led to him getting fired, still just barely had a winning record in Atlanta, 43-42. So that's not the point here. So again, Dan Quinn coached when you think about it, Mike Smith coached the most games in Falcons history, 7 years. And 7 successful years did not end well in Atlanta. Dan Reeves, second all-time in Falcons coaches. 109 games, again, did not end well, whether that's fair or not. Talking about Dan Reeves getting fired after the Vic injury of 2003, then that's a whole nother discussion. And Norm Van Brocklin, I think NFL Hall of Famer, coached 89 games. Liam Bennett did the same thing, is actually 82 years old. Falcons coach in the late 70s, early 80s. So you had some of that same success. So the point is, in just looking at recent coaches having Jim Mora for a time successful, but then the Falcons started to fall down, and they declined and make it to the playoffs after that. So then you bring in Bobby Petrino, who was brought in for Michael Vick to work with Michael Vick, and we know the whole dogfighting incident with Michael Vick and that scandal. So that doesn't work out, and you have Bobby Petrino actually, you know the story, leaves the team. Somehow in the middle of the night, drives to Arkansas. Now, how far away Atlanta is to Fayetteville, Arkansas, I don't know. But somehow holds a press conference in the middle of the night. People don't realize it. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, goes from being the Falcons coach to an Arkansas coach. No warning, no nothing. Arkansas just hires him right off the bat. And they had success as a good football coach. But for some reason, we know the Arkansas ended very poorly. Then worked with Lamar Jackson at Louisville, whole nother story. So Bobby Petrino left the franchise. And then you had Mike Smith come in. First year, again, Matt Ryan has had to play for just 3 coaches. Raheem Morris, 4 if you count Raheem Morris. Arthur Smith will be the 4th coach that he will play for. So not bad. So 2 coaches in Matt Ryan's first 12 seasons. Not bad. Well, Mike Smith lasted 7 years, but whatever happened in 2013 and 14 led to the dismissal of Mike Smith. So again, the franchise, again, declining after being so good so early in Matt Ryan's career. Again, a promising era. And the Matt Ryan era, or you can say Mike Smith, Dan Quinn, best era in Falcons history. Since this is a stat that came up, they did not have back-to-back winning seasons for the first 42 years of existence. And they've had just 2 Super Bowl appearances. They actually started in 1966. You know what? That was the year the Super Bowl started. Believe it or not. So you had Mike Smith, year 1. Falcons are better than expected. They make it to the playoffs in year 1, 2008. So again, year 1 coaches, fairly successful. Then Mike Smith, we know his run. Very successful run. Still 20 games above 500, despite how it ended the last 2 years, despite the last 2 years going 10-22. So just think how good the record was prior to that. And then you have Dan Quinn, who again is a 500 coach, but first year 8-8. But the Falcons that year actually started out 5-0. I think they had their ups and downs throughout that year. But again, it was a sign of progress. Year 2, you go to the Super Bowl, so think about it. Year 2 for each coach, if you think about it. Dan Reeves, year 2, goes to the Super Bowl. And then Mike Smith, year 2, had a little bit of a down year, but then think about how good year 3, 4, and 5 were, right? Dan Quinn, year 2, is ultimately that Super Bowl year. Matt Ryan has the best year of his career. Falcons almost win the Super Bowl. What if they do? What if they would have? You know what? They came so close to winning that Super Bowl. And you just think about this franchise. You think about the age of Arthur Blank. I'd love to see them win a Super Bowl with Arthur Blank still around as owner. I hope he lives to see them win a Super Bowl. That would be great. I hope, it'd be something if Matt Ryan could win a Super Bowl in Atlanta. I mean, think about all that he's accomplished throughout his career. And some of those quarterbacks on that list that are ranked very high in all-time passing categories, Phil Rivers, Dan Marino, never won a Super Bowl. So all of Matt Ryan's accomplishment, and he may be top 5 in so many categories, and granted, coming from this modern era of quarterbacks who just kind of shattered you want to look at what the quarterback records were when Matt Ryan came into the league, what they are now. I mean, he's passed and surpassed so many quarterbacks that are probably once ranked very high on that order. So Matt Ryan will be obviously ranked very high in so many categories. That's why it just, you can say, you can put in two perspectives. So locally here in Atlanta, I watch Falcons football. I admit I want them to win. I want them to be good since I know it's good for the local community. You can say from a neutral perspective, I just want to see Matt Ryan win a Super Bowl. I mean, it came so close. I want to see this franchise win a Super Bowl. This franchise has been around for 55 years and has never won a Super Bowl. So that's what you hope to see with Matt Ryan, hopefully for the next 3 years, is win a Super Bowl. And granted, just to go back to the point, year 2 coaching, so year 3 for Dan Quinn, to answer the question, was a playoff coach as well in year 3. And then year 4, 5, kind of mediocre. You hoping year 6, okay, whatever this funk they're going through, you thought they're going to get better. What's going on? And then year 6 just falls out. Reed Morris takes over. Actually, does quite well. They go 4-7. Actually, they're a 500 caliber team. And you think about last year, Falcons being 4-12. They're not as bad as their record. But then again, they have a lot of weaknesses to this team, and this team still has weaknesses. I mean, now you bring in Coach Arthur Smith first year, and granted, year 1 is always an interesting year for a coach. I mean, you have in year 1, obviously, when you hire a new coach, more times than not, there was something that you did not like about the previous coach. That's what Arthur Blank decided. Also, new GM Terry Fontenot as well in Atlanta, but Arthur Smith's track record in Tennessee, I think, really took off in 2019. Taking over from Matt LaFleur, went over to become the Packers head coach. As offensive coordinator, I mean, you had Marcus Mariota, this team's offense was terrible, and then boom, in comes Ryan Tannehill. He starts, takes off, plays really well down the stretch, gets a $100 million contract. Derrick Henry becomes the best running back in the league, rushes for 1,500, and then rushes for 2,000 yards. That's what Arthur Smith was at his best in, say, 2019, 2020. Team goes to the conference championship. Atlanta likes him as their coach. So what kind of offense Arthur Smith is going to run, I don't know yet. I don't know. I mean, preseason doesn't count. I'm going to have to watch it kind of firsthand. Obviously, Mike Davis is not Derrick Henry. Matt Ryan is not Ryan Tannehill. So that type of plays that you run where Ryan Tannehill takes off and run, Matt Ryan, as great as he's been, is not capable of doing that. This is a different team. You're going to have to run a different type of offense. You're not Tennessee. This is different. You can't copy Tennessee. It just doesn't make sense. And so it just doesn't make sense here. So again, this is year 1. Obviously, Mike Smith, year 1, made it to the playoffs. Again, when Matt Ryan came in, and Mike Smith came in, and Thomas Dimitroff, I think, they were a struggling franchise, just coming off Michael Vick scandal. They were 4-12 in 2007. Yet they come in comes Matt Ryan, and that's the thing about the Falcons is they drafted fairly well. Dimitroff did his first few years. That's why they're good for a while, and then I think the drafting kind of stopped, especially kind of towards the end of that era, into the Dan Quinn era. I mean, that's why they are where they are right now. So how well Fontenot drafts over the next few years will be critical to where this team goes. But again, just a complete mess. Boom, they make it to the playoffs in year 1, and they basically win every year in the first 5 years. Dan Quinn comes in again, 8-8. They have their struggles, but they're 8-8. Year 2, they're in the Super Bowl, right? And then year 4, 5, and 6 just fall apart. So that's the thing about Arthur Smith is, 1, can they have another winning coach? This is the 3rd full-time head coach Matt Ryan has had. And again, this is not like the first time Mike Smith, or kind of in the middle of his career. I'd say Dan Quinn takes over. He's been in the league. This is year 14. So you'd say that's the middle of his career, right then and there. And then kind of year 11, year 12 for Ryan. Then year 13, things kind of go south, and that's not what you want out of your friend. Well, that's not what you want your team to be with your franchise quarterback. So again, Arthur Smith is here. Many people around the league, experts, say the Falcons will win 6 or 7 games. Now, that's what they say. And when I look through the schedules, thinking, are they better than this team? Are they not? Maybe that's a win. Maybe I thought they looked, based on looking at their schedule, looked like a team that would win 6 or 7 games. So we'll see. 17 games. Excuse me, getting kind of tired here. 17-game season. We'll see how good they actually are. How many of these games they do win, whether they're better than expected, whether they're worse than expected, who knows? But the point is, it's a new coach, new era. The Falcons have had their moments of success. The question is Arthur Smith that coach that finally gets to win a Super Bowl with Atlanta? They have 18 head coaches. Arthur Smith is coach number 18. Is that 18th coach, that Super Bowl winning coach, by the way, is and you ask this question again, just to specify, is, for an example, just looking at who their coaches have been. Is Matt Ryan that quarterback when they win the Super Bowl? Is Terry Fontenot that front office architect when they win that Super Bowl? So again, Dimitroff was there for 13 years, was actually fired along with Dan Quinn as well. And new GM, new coaches is sort of like 2008. Not a new quarterback, though. There were talks of Justin Fields coming to Atlanta, and I think what the front office determined is that it was not on Matt Ryan. And again, Ryan, if he can last these 3 years in Atlanta, he might eventually have to get a new quarterback. So whether they can, and you're talking long-term out, I mean, I have no idea what the Falcons will look like after week 1. I don't know what they'll look like after this year. It's unknown, and Matt Ryan said this in his press conference today, it is unknown. So you don't know what, again, so you might think, oh, what are they going to do over the next 3 years? Is this going to happen? Is that going to, just 1 week at a time. You got to get through this season to see what happens. It's 1 week at a time just to see what happens. And then after that, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen after that? So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Matt Ryan, Arthur Smith. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this year's going to look. Sure, 7-9 or 7-10, whatnot. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen this year in Atlanta? In terms of the team so far, just if I want to quickly go rapid fire, just to wrap this video up. Quarterback, they think they're good. Running back, you try to use Mike Davis, okay. Now, how long that works out, I don't know. Is fairly young, middle-aged running back. Then you have wide receivers. You have Ridley, Kyle Pitts. Russell Gage really showed a lot in year 3 in Atlanta. 6th-round pick. As much as they messed up on drafting, especially in those early rounds, they really hit on that 6th-round pick in 2018. In Russell Gage, the round you're not expected to hit on guys. You just hope contribute in some way or another, and more times than not, do not, given their draft status. You have that. Line, I'd say, is a question. I talked about that earlier in the show. Cornerback, you did bring in Dean Pease, veteran defensive coordinator who has been very successful in other places like New England and Baltimore, been coaching Super Bowls and won Super Bowls, believe it or not. So whether A.J. Terrell, first-round pick 2020, emerges in year 2, interesting to see how that is. Who the rest of the cornerback, who knows? Secondary is a big question mark. They have talented pieces. Like, you could look around. Kyle Pitts, I could say, is already on that list. Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley. You have Deion Jones, Grady Jarrett. You have talent in various spots on the field. The question is, if that's your core and that's who you're trying to build around this year, and whatever this team's trying to do this year, whatever the results are, is it acceptable or not? Obviously, this team has a lot of salary cap issues. Again, that's one issue they had this offseason. So they're just going to go out there and play this year, try to take it one game at a time. And that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm trying to evaluate one game at a time. So this week it's all about Philadelphia. Yeah, you can look at what are they going to do this year, much less the next 3 years. or the contract or the duration of the contract of Coach Smith. But this week it's really just about trying to beat Philadelphia. Then it's about trying to beat Tampa, the defending Super Bowl champion. So we'll see. We'll see how things look this year for the Falcons. This is Burke Lyle. We'll see you next time